Hello and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I am Dan McCaleb, executive editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me today is the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent, Ben Yount. How are you today, Ben?
My Milwaukee Brewers are 2.5 games up in the NL Central, and they play the White Sox over the weekend. We could end up 3-4 games in first by the time we go to LA and probably get stuffed. But I mean, hey, look, I'm only looking short term here. Only got to win it by one game.
That's right, and you got it. The White Sox are not tearing things up this year. In fact, the exact opposite is true. You might catch him when Tim Anderson is on suspension after his brawl over the weekend with the Cleveland Guardians third baseman.
Hey, look, if you're stealing, you can't come up jawing. All right, baseball's still a man's game.
Anyway, Ben, speaking of those Brewers, a Milwaukee County supervisor has floated the idea of reviving a now dormant sales tax in the region to help fund renovations to American Family Field, home of the Brewers. Another supervisor quickly shot down the idea on social media. Tell us what this is all about.
The 5-county sales tax. This was how Miller Park, when it was originally built, got built. The Brewers used to play at County Stadium, and it was much like old Comiskey, or I think most old baseball parks in this country in the 1980s, 1990s. It had seen better days, wanted to build this brand new stadium, and we're going to have a retractable roof. And in order to make it work, they imposed a sales tax in Milwaukee, Waukesha, Washington, Ozaukee, and Racine counties, I believe. I believe those are the 5. And everybody paid 1% sales tax. And they did this till about 2022, 21, and then it expired. And we wrote about it at the time that it expired, and it was relatively unique because generally once governments approve taxes, they just don't go away. They continue forever and ever and ever and ever. The expiration of that tax has led to a gap between what the Brewers and Major League Baseball say is needed to keep the stadium modern, to keep the stadium open, to keep the stadium running. That's about $400 million that they need over the next several years for ongoing renovations. There was talk during the state budget earlier in the spring of, all right, there's some support from Republicans. They want to keep the Brewers in Milwaukee. They want to keep all of the income taxes on the millionaires who play for the Brewers in the state of Wisconsin. So let's figure out a way that we can do this. It has been leaders in Milwaukee, the city, and Milwaukee County, however, who have been the loudest voices to say, no, we're not going to pay for this. Typically, when you have arguments over public funding for sports stadiums, it is free market conservative lawmakers from the rest of the state who don't want to pay. Why should we in outstate Wisconsin pay for a benefit for Milwaukee? You have a little bit of that, but in this case, you have more opposition from Milwaukee and Milwaukee County leaders. County Supervisor Sheldon Wasserman, who has vowed not to spend a dime of public money on American Family Field, said, well, let's bring back the sales tax. Let's bring back the 5-county sales tax and use that. One of the other Milwaukee County supervisors, again, both of these men Democrats, Peter Bergeles, immediately jumped in and said, no, people, no one wants to pay another tax. The Brewers are a multi-million dollar, maybe billion-dollar organization. Bergeles says they have the money to pay for this themselves. This also comes on the heels of Milwaukee County just a couple of weeks ago increasing its portion of the sales tax. Milwaukee County had a 0.5-cent sales tax. Now it's just under a penny. And so for a Milwaukee County supervisor to, right after approving one sales tax, come back and say, oh, sure, let's implement another sales tax, maybe not the most popular thing. And Bergeles's comments on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, I think reflect that more as opposed to any free market opposition of let billionaire ballpark owners pay for their $1 billion ballparks.
Very good point there, Ben. Those kind of fights are happening all over the country. We wrote extensively at thecentersquare.com about the Tennessee Titans wanting $1 billion, more than $1 billion in taxpayer funds to build a new NFL stadium in Nashville. And we could give countless examples of this. But yeah, the question taxpayers should ask themselves, in my opinion, is these are billionaire owners. Why do they need my money? Yes, there are some Brewers, plenty of Brewer fans. I'm saying, hey, yeah, to keep the Brewers in Milwaukee, we'll pay a tax. But there's so many more people who don't go to Brewers games, et cetera. So why should they be forced to fund stadium renovations? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, this is one of the quirks. The Milwaukee Bucks own their stadium. They, by the way, also got a sweetheart deal from then Governor Walker to build Pfizer Forum, and that's how we got an NBA All-Star game. And so Wisconsin has a bipartisan history of spending taxpayer money to benefit ballparks. But the difference between, say, Pfizer or some of these other privately owned stadiums across the country is that American Family Field is actually managed by a public entity. The Southeast Wisconsin Professional Baseball District, I believe, is the official name. The Stadium District is how it is constantly referred to. And the Republican Speaker of the Assembly, Robin Vos, and many other leaders, including Milwaukee County's executives, say, look, this is a publicly owned ballpark. If the Brewers say, hey, thanks, smell you never, we're going to Salt Lake City to play baseball, American Family Field would still sit there, and it would be owned by the taxpayers. And the $400 million that the Brewers are asking for to fix the roof and upgrade the seats and make sure that the bathrooms are still not disgusting, well, someone would have to pay that, because otherwise you're going to have some sort of decrepit Detroit-esque, it wasn't the Meadowlands, the Silver Dome. You're going to have that kind of a situation where you just have this building fall into decay. The solution here is going to come at the state level. And because, again, Republicans control the legislature, there will be a pay-in some way, somehow from Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. The Republican leaders of the state legislature have insisted on that. What that is, we don't know. Remember, there was just a shared revenue plan that will send more state dollars to these communities. And could there be some wiggle room there of the state just withholding that? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the argument here is not so much should taxpayers pay for American Family Field. The argument is, look, you're going to pay one way or the other. One way gets us to keep the Brewers guaranteed for the next 30 years. The other way, we have to play this game of will they, won't they? And nobody wants to become the Oakland A's, sitting here watching your team wait to be able to go to Las Vegas. That, and besides, I don't think the Salt Lake City Brewers have the same ring.
Good point. And of course, the Oakland Raiders have already moved out of Oakland to Las Vegas. Yeah. And for that matter, the Golden State Warriors in the NBA also moved out of Oakland in recent years, relocated to San Francisco. Anyway, Ben, this is a fascinating conversation. And a news story that won't go away anytime soon, but we are out of time. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening.